All right, students, here we go again. We're going to do our Establishment Clause lecture. Come here, guys. Oh, we have, come here, Lily, come here. Oh, we have, as our special guests of honor, Max and Lily. Max, oh, I'm sorry, Sam, excuse me, wrong dog. Sam and Lily. They'll be excited to watch this too. All right. Let's go through this. This one won't be as long as the last one. Teacher's note. The Establishment Clause cases are a mess. First, there has been a shift from a wall of separation analysis by the Warren Court in the 60s to an accommodationist approach afterwards. I'll explain that in a minute. Second, there are several tests used by different Supreme Court courts and justices at different times, depending on the type of the case brought for the court. So I'm going to give you a lean and mean way to approach these. My approach to teaching this will be to give you a concise set of arguments to apply to the different types of Establishment Clause scenarios you might encounter. Apply the arguments and you will get the points. All right? I'll be right back. Okay, what does the Establishment Clause say? The Establishment Clause says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. All right, what does that mean? Okay, so the two different approaches to this. You can approach these cases like the Warren Court did from a separationist point of view, which means there is a wall of separation between church and state. Now, when we say state in that context, we mean government, right? We mean government. Just, the state, which could be the federal or state governments. By the way, that phrase was coined by Thomas Jefferson. After the Warren Court, we get a more accommodationist approach, which is the state can accommodate religion, doesn't have to be so strict on religion separation as long as you're not favoring one religion over another. In the 1960s, SCOTUS was separationist in the Warren Court. From the 70s today, the Supreme Court has been more accommodationist. Now, Engel versus Vitale are one of our 15 cases. By the way, after this lesson, brief it. Involve New York Public Schools. So, that is an incorporation case where you are going, so when you see a state, meaning state like Arizona or New York case, involving public schools or courthouses, whatever, then you are going to talk about incorporation. Incorporation. So you're going to talk about the 14th Amendment Due Process Clause and protecting fundamental rights. Now, the obvious goal of this clause, the obvious goal was to prevent the federal government at first, and then after incorporation, federal or state governments from having an official state church. An official state church. England has an official state church. In England, you pay taxes, and your tax money goes to the Church of England. The Church of England is an official state church recognized by the government as the official state church. By the way, if you're going to have an Establishment Clause free response, mention this at the beginning of it. But the clause has a broader objective. And that is to, well, hold on, we're going to talk about that in a second. Here are the types of cases you may see. You may see a case involving public schools. Public schools are schools like Bradshaw Mountain High School, established by the state of Arizona. Within public schools, we're going to be talking about prayer or moments of silence. I forgot to put that in my slide. teaching evolution or creationism. You may also see cases on parochial schools. What is a parochial school? By the way, if you forget that word on the AP exam, just talk about a private religious school. A parochial school is a private religious school supported by a particular church. Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Muslim. All right? On those cases, you may see tax money going to those private Christian schools, or bus service, textbooks, teacher salaries. The third category of cases you might see are cases involving public displays, the Ten Commandments, or nativity scenes, a Christmas creche, nativity scene, write down Christmas creche, which is Jesus in the manger at courthouses. And you may see a prayer case, but not at school, prayer cases at city council meetings or legislatures, Congress or state legislatures. So those are the type of cases you are going to see, and these are the arguments that I want you to memorize for upholding a law or a government action or opposing a law or government action. People arguing against a law or government action are going to argue the purpose of the law is to advance religion. Or they may argue the law or government action coerces either non-believers or people of a different faith than the action is addressed to. Or they may argue that the government action endorses or sponsors religion or a particular religion. Arguments in favor of the law addresses a non-religious problem that the government has a right to address. The law does not favor one religion over another. The law or government action is part of long-held traditional beliefs, and the court should not express hostility toward religion. Now pause this tape, go and highlight these, turn, and try and remember these, okay? Because these are the ones I want you to remember for the AP exam. All right, let's talk about particular cases. Hey! Sam, stop. Hey! Quiet! I'm filming. The kids don't want to listen to you guys wrestle, okay? Stop. Thank you. Okay. School prayer. This is one of our 15. All right, brief it. Stop. 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 All right, Engel versus Vitale. This was a Warren Court case. And they said, hold on, I'm going to pause this. I don't know how to pause it. How do I pause? I don't know how to pause it. I'm going to open the door and let them out. I'll be right back. Come on, guys, come here. Stay close. All right, let's hope I don't lose my dogs. Okay. Read the facts on Engel versus Vitale. There was a non-denominational prayer that had to be recited. Kids did not have to recite it. Get out of here! Go! 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 But it was required to be said at the school. That's why we call it mandatory prayer, compulsory prayer. All right. The Supreme Court said the purpose of the law was to advance religion. It violated the Establishment Clause. That was the end of their analysis. They did not talk about coercion, but in later Supreme Court cases, such as Santa Fe High School, where there was a student-led prayer at a football game by the band director, who was the person with the, I don't know, what do you call him, the person at the head of the marching band, with a loudspeaker recited a prayer. The Supreme Court struck it down. They said the school policy was to advance religion, but they also focused on sponsorship and particularly on coercion. Focus on coercion with school cases, which will become apparent when we talk about prayer at city council meetings, which are not a school environment. All right. Oh, by the way, I didn't write these down, but go ahead and write these down. After these cases, Oklahoma passed a law that said a moment of silence for prayer. The Supreme Court said a moment of silence for prayer, the purpose of the law is to advance religion. You can't do that. So then states passed a law that said a moment of silence for quiet reflection, and those laws were upheld. So, moment of silence for prayer violates the Establishment Clause. Moment of silence for quiet reflection does not violate the Establishment Clause. All right. If you see a case involving the school setting, you're going to focus on coercion and endorsement. Do you think the Supreme Court has that right? Do you think school children in a classroom are going to feel coerced to pray when they otherwise really wouldn't want to? All right. Evolution. In 1968, the Supreme Court addressed a law that said you cannot teach evolution. The Supreme Court said that law violates the Establishment Clause. Why? Purpose of the law is promote religion. In 1987, interestingly, this is after the Warren Court is long gone, although the justice that wrote this, his name was Brennan, and he was the last holdout from the Warren Court, said a law that says if you teach evolution, you also have to teach creationism, violates the Establishment Clause. What is creationism? Creationism is the Genesis Old Testament story of the earth being created in 7 days. The Supreme Court said, purpose of the law is to promote religion. I would also add, if I was doing an analysis on this, that it would involve what? Starting with a C and ending with Ursion. Coercion. All right, are we good? I'm going to make sure this is not turning off on me. Okay, money, tax money, going to private schools. Crystal clear, the government cannot send a check directly to private Christian schools. That would involve sponsorship. That would involve direct support, sponsorship. That would be no good. However, there have been a couple cases that chip away at this. One, I think it was in Ohio, there were a bunch of failing schools, and the state passed a law that said, we're going to give you parents of failing schools a voucher, basically a check for money, and you can take that to a private school to get your kid educated, including a private religious school. That was upheld. Also in Arizona, by the way, this was upheld by a 5-4 vote. Arizona has a law that says if you write up to a $1,200 check, if you write a check if you spend over $1,200 on a private Christian school, then you get a tax credit back on your state income tax, which means you get that money back dollar for dollar. It's the exact same thing as taking money out of the state treasury, but the Supreme Court said, no, it's parents making a decision on where their money goes, not the state, so it does not amount to direct payment to schools. All right, there were a series of cases on challenging states wanting to help private Christian schools, private religious schools, with providing school busing of the children to the school, or providing textbooks for non-religious topics. Here's the interesting thing. Does a private Christian school still have to meet state standards on non-religious topics? The answer is yes. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to issue a diploma, a high school diploma, which has to comply with Arizona law. The Supreme Court said, even though you're giving them a lot of money and that's helping them financially, your purpose is not religious. Your purpose is non-religious because you want to make sure that the kids get there safe and they get an education per state standards on non-religious topics. The argument was made, if there was a fire at a private Christian school, then the fire department would go there just like anybody and help them. So we're going to help them. The Christian kids get to school and have good textbooks. However, when it came to paying teacher salaries, the Supreme Court said it's too hard to monitor Christian schools to make sure teachers getting paid with state tax money are only teaching non-religious topics. If I was a teacher at a private Christian school, I might teach biology in one lesson and then Christian studies in the second hour, and then go back and teach chemistry and then teach Bible studies the fourth hour. They said that's too entangled. That's going too far. Public displays. This is crazy stuff. All right, you walk into a courthouse and you see the Ten Commandments. The Supreme Court said that violates the Establishment Clause. Why? It is promoting religion. It involves coercion and sponsorship. Then there was a case where there was a statue, one of like 40 statues circling a courthouse of historical figures, and one was of Moses holding the Ten Commandments. The Supreme Court said that's not a violation of the Establishment Clause, long-held traditional beliefs. A statue doesn't involve coercion or sponsorship when it is among many historical statues. All right, nativity scenes. Jesus in the manger. You'll see on the next slide there was a picture of a Jesus in the manger along with Santa Claus and a Christmas tree. The Supreme Court said it was out on the courthouse lawn. They said no violation of the Establishment Clause, long-held traditional beliefs, no coercion, and then a nativity scene right next to the courthouse door. Only a nativity scene. The Supreme Court said you're pressing our buttons. That is a violation of the Establishment Clause. You're promoting religion, you're showing sponsorship and endorsement. There is a picture of the nativity scene with Santa Claus and the reindeers that the Supreme Court said was okay. Anybody besides me think the Supreme Court has better things to do than to be deciding cases like this? All right, prayer at a city council meeting. A very famous case. The city of Greece in New York, in the state of New York, would open up its city council meetings with a prayer. They would invite all the different churches in town to come in and alternate on the prayer. People said, hey, if prayer in schools is unconstitutional, prayer should be unconstitutional at a city council meeting. The Supreme Court said no. They said, unlike school, there's no coercion because it's adults and not students. No preference was shown to one religion or another, and we have a long historical tradition of prayers in front at the beginning of legislative meetings. So, use these arguments if you see a case on, in God we trust on our money, under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so what's the moral of the story? What do I want you to know? I want you to know these arguments. I want you to know these arguments against the law, these arguments for a law, and be ready to use them when a case is compared to Engel versus Vitale. The only complication is Engel versus Vitale just rested solely on this. If you see later cases like City of Greece, I don't know, is the purpose of the prayer to promote religion? Probably. But they take an accommodationist approach and look at these factors. All right. Are we good? I'm going to cut this off. This is going to be one of our shorter ones. Thanks, and say goodbye to Sam and Lily. Sam and Lily, where are you at? Here they come. All right. See you guys.